You're sitting with a group of friends, family, or even colleagues, and the conversation takes a turn towards the personal. Someone starts sharing the intimate details of their life, their struggles, their challenges, their fears. And before you know it, everyone is chiming in with their own stories, their own problems, their own complaints. Sound familiar? It's a scenario that plays out in social gatherings, workplaces, and even online forums all the time. And while there's certainly value in sharing our experiences and seeking support from others, there's also a danger in getting too caught up in the drama of our own lives. You see, when we constantly talk about what's going on in our lives, we give those experiences power over us. We allow them to define us, to shape our thoughts and emotions, and to dictate the course of our lives. But what if I told you there was another way? What if I told you that by simply shifting your focus away from your own problems and onto something greater, you could transform your life in ways you never thought possible? It may sound too good to be true, but hear me out. You see, when we stop telling what's going on in our lives, we open ourselves up to a whole new world of possibilities. We free ourselves from the limitations of our own stories, and we start to see the world through a different lens. Think about it this way: when you're constantly talking about your problems, your challenges, your struggles, what are you really focusing on? You're focusing on lack, on limitation, on what's missing from your life. But when you stop telling those stories, when you shift your focus onto something else, something bigger than yourself, you start to see the abundance that's all around you. You start to notice the opportunities, the blessings, the miracles that are hiding in plain sight. And that's where the magic happens. That's where you start to tap into a source of power and potential that most people never even know exists. That's where you start to create a life that's full of joy, purpose, and meaning. But I know what you might be thinking, but what about the real problems in my life? What about the challenges I'm facing, the obstacles I need to overcome? How can I just ignore those things and focus on something else? And I get it. I really do. We all have real problems, real challenges, real issues that we need to deal with on a daily basis. And I'm not suggesting that you ignore those things or pretend they don't exist. But what I am suggesting is that you stop giving them so much power over your life. What I am suggesting is that you start to see those challenges as opportunities for growth, for learning, for transformation. You see, when we focus all of our energy and attention on our problems, we give them the power to control us. We allow them to dictate our thoughts, our emotions, our actions. And before we know it, we're stuck in a cycle of negativity and self-doubt that can be hard to break free from. But when we shift our focus onto something else, something that inspires us, something that fills us with a sense of purpose and meaning, we start to see those problems in a different light. We start to approach them with a sense of curiosity, with a willingness to learn and grow from them. And that's when the real transformation happens. That's when we start to see our challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities. That's when we start to tap into our own inner strength and resilience, and we start to create a life that's full of possibility and potential. So how do you do it? How do you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater? Well, it starts with a simple shift in mindset. Instead of dwelling on your problems, start to focus on your dreams. Instead of complaining about what's wrong in your life, start to express gratitude for what's right. Instead of seeking validation and support from others, start to cultivate a deep sense of self-love and self-acceptance. And most importantly, start to take action. Start to do something every day that moves you closer to your goals, your dreams, your highest aspirations. Whether it's writing in a journal, meditating, exercising, or simply taking a few moments to breathe deeply and center yourself, make it a priority to invest in your own growth and development. Because here's the thing, when you focus on something greater than yourself, when you tap into a sense of purpose and meaning, you start to attract incredible things into your life. You start to notice synchronicities and opportunities that you never even knew existed. You start to feel a sense of excitement and enthusiasm for the journey ahead. And before you know it, those problems that once seemed so overwhelming start to fade into the background. They don't disappear entirely, but they lose their power over you. They become simply another part of the tapestry of your life, another thread in the rich and beautiful story that you're weaving. So let me ask you this, what would your life look like if you stopped telling what's going on in your life and started focusing on something greater? What kind of person would you become? What kind of impact would you make in the world? I want you to take a moment right now to close your eyes and visualize that future self. See yourself as the confident, purposeful, joyful person you've always wanted to be. Feel the energy and excitement that comes from living a life that's fully aligned with your values and your passions. And now I want you to make a commitment to yourself. A commitment to stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater. A commitment to take one small step every day towards becoming that future self, no matter how scary or uncomfortable it may feel. It could be something as simple as starting your day with a few minutes of quiet reflection or setting aside time each week to pursue a hobby or passion. It could be reaching out to someone you admire and asking for their guidance or mentorship. It could be volunteering your time and energy to a cause that's close to your heart. Whatever it is, make it a non-negotiable part of your daily routine. Make it as important as breathing or eating or sleeping, because when you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, everything else starts to fall into place. And I promise you this, when you look back on your life years from now, you won't remember the problems that once seemed so overwhelming. You won't remember the challenges or the obstacles or the moments of self-doubt. What you will remember is the person you became, the life you created, the impact you made in the world. And you'll be grateful that you had the courage to stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, even when it was hard, even when it was scary. So let's make that commitment right here and now. Let's pledge to stop telling what's going on in our lives and start focusing on something greater no matter what life throws our way. Let's support and encourage each other and hold each other accountable to our highest vision of ourselves. And most importantly, let's never forget how powerful we truly are. Let's never forget that we have within us the ability to create the life we want, to be the person we've always dreamed of being. It all starts with a decision. A decision to stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater. A decision to trust in your own strength, your own wisdom, and your own resilience. So make that decision today. Take that first step, no matter how small or how scary, and watch as your life begins to transform in ways you never thought possible. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater. And I know that when you make that commitment, when you take that leap of faith, incredible things will start to happen. You see, when you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, you start to tap into a source of power and potential that most people never even know exists. You start to realize that you are not limited by your circumstances, your past, or your perceived weaknesses. Instead, you start to see yourself as the creator of your own reality. You start to understand that you have the ability to shape your life in any way you choose simply by focusing your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions in a positive direction. And as you start to live from that place of inner power and conviction, something amazing starts to happen. You start to attract people and opportunities into your life that reflect your newfound sense of purpose and passion. You start to notice that the world around you begins to shift and change almost as if it's responding to your internal state of being. You start to see synchronicities and serendipities popping up everywhere, guiding you towards your highest goals and aspirations. But it's not just about what happens on the outside. When you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, you also start to experience a profound shift on the inside. You start to feel a deep sense of peace and contentment, knowing that you are living in alignment with your true self. You start to experience a level of joy and fulfillment that you never thought possible simply by honoring your own needs, desires, and passions. And as you continue to cultivate that inner state of well-being, you start to radiate a magnetic energy that draws others to you like moths to a flame. People start to see you as a leader, a visionary, someone who is not afraid to blaze their own trail and create their own destiny. But let's be clear, focusing on something greater doesn't mean ignoring the realities of your life or pretending that everything is perfect. It doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations or shirking your responsibilities. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you focus on something greater, you start to develop a deeper sense of clarity and purpose that allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace and ease. You start to approach your problems from a place of wisdom and understanding rather than fear and reactivity. And from that place of clarity, you start to show up in the world in a different way. You start to communicate with others from a place of authenticity and compassion rather than judgment or criticism. You start to build relationships based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. You start to see that focusing on something greater is not just about personal growth and achievement, it's about creating a ripple effect of positivity and change that extends far beyond yourself. And that's the true power of this mindset. When you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, you become a catalyst for transformation in the world around you. You start to create a positive impact that goes far beyond what you ever thought possible. But it all starts with a willingness to look within. It all starts with a commitment to focus on something greater, to nurture your own growth and development, to cultivate a deep sense of purpose and meaning. And I know that can be scary. I know it can feel uncomfortable at times, like you're venturing into uncharted territory. But I promise you this, the rewards are worth it. When you stop telling what's going on in your life and start focusing on something greater, you start to experience a level of freedom and liberation that most people only dream of. You start to break free from the chains of limitation and self-doubt and step into the fullness of your own potential. You start to realize that you are not defined by your past, your mistakes, or your perceived flaws. You are defined by the choices you make in each moment, by the vision you hold for your life, by the courage and resilience you bring to each new challenge. And as you start to live from that place of inner power and conviction, you start to inspire others to do the same. You start to create a domino effect of positive change simply by showing up as your best self and encouraging others to do the same. So let me ask you this, what's stopping you from focusing on something greater? What's holding you back from stepping into the fullness of your own potential, from creating the life you truly want to live? Is it a fear of failure? A fear of the unknown? A fear of what others might think or say? Whatever it is, I want you to know that it's okay. It's okay to feel scared, to feel uncertain, to feel like you don't have all the answers. But I also want you to know that you have within you the power to overcome those fears. You have within you the strength and the resilience to keep going, even when things get tough, even when the path ahead seems unclear. And when you focus on something greater, you start to tap into that inner wellspring of courage and determination. You start to trust in your own abilities, your own intuition, your own innate wisdom. You start to realize that fear is just an illusion, a temporary obstacle on the path to greatness. And you start to move through those fears with grace and ease, knowing that they are simply stepping stones on the journey to your highest self. But it's not always easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments of uncertainty, moments when you question whether you have what it takes to keep going. And in those moments, I want you to remember this, you are not alone. You are part of a global community of individuals who are all committed to focusing on something greater, to creating a life of purpose and meaning. You are part of a movement of change makers and visionaries, of leaders and luminaries who are all working together to create a brighter, more beautiful world. And when you tap into that sense of connection and community, when you surround yourself with people who believe in you and support you, anything becomes possible. So let's make a pact right here and now. Let's commit to focusing on something greater no matter what life throws our way. Let's commit to being the change we wish to see in the world, to living our lives with purpose and passion, to inspiring others to do the same. And let's do it together. Let's create a global network of individuals who are all dedicated to personal growth and transformation, to creating a positive impact in the world around us. Let's share our stories, our struggles, our triumphs. Let's lift each other up and hold each other accountable to our highest vision of ourselves. Because when we come together in the spirit of love and unity, when we focus on something greater, there is no limit to what we can achieve. We can create a world of abundance and prosperity, a world of peace and harmony, a world where every individual has the opportunity to thrive and flourish. And it all starts with you. It all starts with a willingness to focus on something greater, to cultivate a deep sense of purpose and meaning, to act from a place of love and service. So let me leave you with this final thought. You are powerful beyond measure. You have within you the ability to create the life you truly want, to make a difference in the world around you, to inspire others to greatness. All you have to do is take that first step. All you have to do is focus on something greater and trust that the universe will conspire to support you, to guide you, to lead you towards your highest goals and aspirations. And when you do, I promise you this, your life will never be the same. You will experience a level of joy and fulfillment that you never thought possible. You will create a legacy of positivity and change that will ripple out into the world around you. So let's make that commitment right here and now. Let's focus on something greater, no matter what challenges we face, no matter what obstacles we encounter. Let's be the change we wish to see in the world and inspire others to do the same. And most importantly, let's never forget how powerful we truly are. Let's never forget that we have within us the ability to create miracles, to transform our lives and the lives of those around us simply by focusing on something greater. So go out there and make it happen. Take that first step, no matter how small or how scary. And trust that the universe will conspire to support you, to guide you, to lead you towards your highest goals and aspirations. I believe in you. I believe in your ability to focus on something greater, to create a life of purpose and meaning. And I know that when you do, incredible things will start to happen. So let's make it happen together. Let's create a world of limitless possibility, a world where every individual has the opportunity to shine their light and make a difference. It all starts with you. It all starts with a commitment to focus on something greater, to live your life with passion and purpose, to inspire others to do the same. And when you make that commitment, when you take that leap of faith, I promise you this, your life will be forever changed. You will experience a level of happiness and fulfillment that you never thought possible. You will become the person you were always meant to be, the person you were born to be. And you will inspire others to do the same simply by living your truth and focusing on something greater. So let's make that commitment right here and now. Let's stop telling what's going on in our lives and start focusing on something greater, something that fills us with a sense of excitement and possibility. Let's create a life that's full of joy, purpose, and meaning, and let's do it together as a community of like-minded individuals who are all dedicated to making a positive impact in the world. Because when we come together in the spirit of love and unity, when we focus on something greater, there is no limit to what we can achieve. We can move mountains, we can change lives, we can create a world that's full of beauty, compassion, and understanding. And it all starts with a simple shift in mindset, a simple decision to focus on something greater, no matter what life throws our way. So let's make that decision right here and now. Let's stop telling what's going on in our lives and start focusing on something greater, something that inspires us to be our best selves and make a positive impact in the world. Let's support each other, encourage each other, and hold each other accountable to our highest vision of ourselves. And most importantly, let's never forget the power that lies within us, the power to create the life we truly want, the power to be a force for good in the world.
I've adopted the following list from a fascinating book called The Disappearance of the Universe, published by Hay House in 2004 by Gary Renard, which gives an account of two spiritual visitors teaching Gary the significance of A Course in Miracles. Whether you accept the premise or not is your option. I find these teachings to be profound, and they merit consideration. Number 1, the ego says you're a body. The Holy Spirit says you're not even a person. You're just like me, your source of being. This teaching shows that our ego insists we're impermanent, which is opposed to our being what Lao Tzu taught, that which never changes. That's what we are, that which never changes. Lao Tzu was a 6th century BC mystical spiritual teacher and author of the Tao. When we think about our life here on earth, we can't avoid the awareness that everything we experience, including our body, returns to dust to be recycled by spirit. Our ego finds this concept impossible to accept. 2. The ego says your thoughts are very, very important. The Holy Spirit insists only thoughts you think with God are real. Nothing else matters. This teaching explains that thoughts centering on ourselves, appearance, possessions, fears, or relationship problems are not only unimportant, they're not real. Ouch! The ego flinches at such commentary. But if we examine these thoughts from Spirit's infinite perspective, we see that we're indeed unreal. When we're totally immersed in Spirit, we only had thoughts of Spirit because that's all we were. When we left it behind, we opted for thoughts that our ego told us were important. A Course in Miracles tells us that we didn't even have to think in heaven because we were thought by God. So we can access permanent inspiration by letting ourselves once again be thought by God and achieve a state of heaven on earth. 3. Your ego says, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. The Holy Spirit asserts, God only gives and never takes away. When living an inspired life, we're focused on giving our life away and simultaneously observing how it's returned, thus fortifying the idea of what goes around comes around. Ego is constantly telling us to be fearful about losing what we have and warning us of greedy others who will take what's ours. But God doesn't take away from us. As we learn to think this way, we attract more of what's missing in our life. The reason for this is simple. We become what we think about. If we think about giving, like God does, the universe will provide. If we think about things being taken away, then that's what we'll attract. 4. The ego says, there's good and bad. The Holy Spirit maintains, there's nothing to judge because it isn't real in the first place. When we accept the ego identification card, we agree to judge almost everyone and everything in terms of good or bad. The problem with this is that we all contain the same spirit from which we originated. If I make you bad and myself good, for instance, I deny the presence of spirit in you, whom I elected to judge. God sees it quite differently. Our spiritual source knows that only it is real. All of the ephemeral world of form and boundaries is not of its infinite nature. At our core, the place where we all originated from and return to, there's no one and nothing to judge. This takes some time to get used to, but once we grasp the truth of this observation, we're free to tap into authentic inspiration. 5. The ego directs love and hate toward individuals. The Holy Spirit's love is nonspecific and all-encompassing. Ego directs us to love some, be indifferent toward many, and hate all others. When we learn to be back in spirit on a full-time basis, we discover what we knew in our pre-ego time. There's no they. There's only one. The one source of all-encompassing love knows nothing of boundaries, differing customs, geographic divisions, family splits, or differences in race, creed, sex, and so on. It only knows love for all. Jesus points so perfectly to the differences between ego and spirit. When we were in spirit, we were a child of our Father in heaven. And, quote, He causes His sun to rise on the evil and the good. Matthew 5:45. This, of course, means that it's all one. Evil, good, righteous, and unrighteous are all the same. Some move away from the Father and some move toward Him. This is such an important and powerful lesson to get as we move toward becoming inspired by living in spirit. 6. The ego devises clever reasons why we should continue to listen to its selfish counsel. The Holy Spirit is certain that at some point we'll turn toward it and ultimately return. Ego will tout its irresistible logic to assure us that our body, our possessions, and our achievements are all very real and important. It convinces us by insisting that what's real is what we can see, touch, hear, taste, and smell. Therefore, invisible spirit isn't real. So ego continues to be attached to stuff and to make the acquisition of money and power a lifelong objective. To that end, it wants us to disdain forgiveness in favor of seeking revenge. Very persuasive logic when we look around and see almost everyone doing just that. Through the lens of inspiration, however, we're able to see how ego has distorted the message of the Holy Spirit. Instead of seeking revenge, we're more likely to see a very sad nation of strivers and virtually no arrivers, a gaggle of pill-poppers searching outside of themselves for a resolution to their depressing, anxiety-filled, joyless, and often lonely lives. As we return to the Holy Spirit, we'll no longer be under the influence of ego's absurd counsel. And 7, the ego wants us to regret our past. The Holy Spirit wants us to practice unconditional forgiveness. The Holy Spirit isn't limited by a past or a future. There's only the eternal now. Any energy we place on what transpired in the past is groundwork for guilt, and ego loves guilt. Such negative energy fabricates an excuse for why our present moments are troubled and gives us a cop-out, a reason to stay out of spirit. And thinking about what we've been or what we did wrong in the past are great impediments to an inspired life. On the other hand, when we're inspired, we're totally engaged in the now. In an infinite, never-beginning and never-ending universe, there can be no past. All guilt and regret simply serve as ways to avoid being here in the only moment we have, which is now. This is where we reconnect to spirit, now. If we choose to use up this holy instant with regrets about a past that's only an illusory thought, then we're unable to be in the joyful, loving, peaceful present moment. Cramming this holy moment with thoughts of guilt, remorse, and regret is great for ego and keeps us totally resistant to being in spirit. These 7 messages are the dominant ones the ego drones on about. If we don't listen, it will try to drown out inspiration by intensifying worrisome and fearful thoughts. I've managed to tame this annoying voice of the ego so that its influence is almost negligible in my life. What follows is a guide for shifting your mindset to experiencing a world where real magic is not only possible, but it's your birthright. With this shift, miracle making will become something you not only believe in, but that you manifest in your everyday life. Number 1, reserve your judgment and your disbelief. I encourage you to cultivate a new, self-declared openness to anything and everything being a possibility for you. Having an open mind and suspending your disbelief allows you to experience new vistas, while your closed mind keeps you trapped in your old ways of thinking and seeing. Real magic is only available to those who can imagine any and all possibilities, while letting the how it will happen take care of itself. 2, create a real magic zone in your mind. Make this a very private part of your life. Reserve a small piece of your consciousness exclusively for this. I've been able to manifest what constitutes miracles for myself by having this very private zone all to myself. Retreat there often to ask for the loving guidance, and the guidance will be there. Number 3, affirm yourself as a no-limit person. When you develop this real magic zone in your mind and trust that you can go there at will, begin to affirm to yourself that there are literally no limits to the powers that you possess. A great rule of thumb is this: if you can conceive of it in your mind, then it can be brought into the physical world. To become your own miracle worker, you'll have to change the thoughts that create your world of limits and boundaries. Why not include the presence of real magic in your life as well? Number 4, develop a new mindset toward the concept of intuition. You really must become comfortable with the idea that strong inner pleadings and sudden hunches are truly inner voices offering you guidance. Think of your intuitive self as God talking privately to you, just as you talk privately to God and call it prayer. I'm absolutely certain that you have numerous stories of times that an inner voice prompted you to behave in what seemed to be an irrational way and turned out instead to be life-saving. It happens to everyone. Most of us get these intuitive signals on a regular basis. Your intuition, that fuzzy inner voice that you hear so often, is a part of your life. It's there. It's real. Pay attention to it. Number 5, discover the secret that sits in the center and knows. Become familiar and comfortable with the notion that nothingness has something to offer you on your path to real magic. Consider, it's the space between the notes that makes the music. A note without space is one long sound. No nothingness, no music. Consider this: a room is not a room without silent, empty space within, surrounded by the shape of material form. No nothingness, no room. And so it is with you. You too are material form surrounding the invisible, silent emptiness that is also you. Without that nothingness inside, there can be no you. It is out of that secret in the center that you will be able to create miracles for yourself. Number 6, learn to learn through knowing and trusting rather than doubting and fearing. Much of your learning has likely involved questioning your ability to gain a particular skill. You were taught to doubt in a culture that stressed, you can't, it's wrong, you don't have the right background or the right credentials or the training or the experience. Out of doubt came a fear of your greatness, a fear of disapproval, a fear of failure or intimacy, and even success. If you want to become acquainted with real magic, fear and doubt must be replaced with trust and a strong reliance on internal knowing. Keep in mind as you shift to this new consciousness that behind fear is powerlessness. That which you fear you are fighting, and fighting always weakens you. Behind trust is empowerment and love. It is your choice always, and the choice begins in that amorphous inner world of the mind. Number 7, affirm that your intention creates your reality. Memorize and continually remind yourself, my intention creates my reality. Intention is the energy of your soul coming into contact with your physical reality. What you see around you, who you associate with, how you function daily, and virtually everything about the physical you is a result of your intentions or how your thoughts became energized into action. Creating miracles in your life comes from your intention to do so. Not your wish, not your desire, not your goal, your intention. Then and only then, you'll begin to turn that same potential into your reality in the material world. Number 8, experience surrender and satori. Surrendering is the equivalent of putting inspiration into your life. When you are inspired, you feel purposeful. When you trust in the invisible intelligence of the universe, you feel guided. It can happen in a moment, and it often occurs just that quickly. In Zen, they call this process satori, which translates roughly to instant awakening. This feeling of satori is a result of an inner decision to be at harmony with yourself and your physical world. It's really a decision to surrender. Number 9, learn to act as if the life you visualize is already here. Act as if that which you perceive in your mind is already here in the physical world. You create your thoughts create your intentions create your reality. Consequently, you must begin to ignore your own doubt about the importance of your inner world and start acting as if the images you desire are already your reality. If you want to be confident but don't normally act that way, today, just this once, act in the physical world the way that you believe a confident person would. This is how miracle-minded people really act in their lives. Try it. Number 10, live according to your spiritual self first and your physical self second. In developing your mindset for real magic, you must begin the process of living primarily according to your spiritual self. Miracles will only occur if the choices you are making are in concert with your spiritual self. Your first responsibility is to your spiritual side. Consult your mind before acting, and therefore become authentic to yourself. It is nothing more than an internal shift. There is no need to rid yourself of physical habits nor pretend that your physical longings don't exist. Instead, what you do is you rearrange your priorities, making first contact with your soul, paying attention to it first, and allowing your behaviors in the physical world to flow from those new thoughts. Look within and listen, and your priorities will be clearly seen and heard by your physical self.
One of the nicest things about the universe is that it pays the highest interest rate of any bank on our planet. The universe gives 20 to 25% interest. If you send out $1,000 worth of love, you get back about $1,300 every time. You get your 1,000 back just to prove that what goes around comes around. And then you get a bonus. And the bonus is there just to remind you, this is the way to behave toward everyone.
When you give something out into the universe, you get it back. In the simplest form, if somebody's walking down the street with a scowl on their face and you say, "Good morning, how are you this morning? Here's a newspaper for you," or whatever it is, and you just say something pleasant and loving and nice, you will see something pleasant and nice come back to you most of the time. If you don't, then that's a test. That's not a, "See, I told you it's not right." That's just your test. most of the time, it will come back to you. A smile, you'll see, and you will feel better. Now, in the simplest form, that's what it is. That even applies to financial things. I remember a few years ago, my secretary was just all concerned about her income taxes, and she owed $500 more on her taxes, and it was the 14th of April. And she didn't know what she was going to do, and she didn't want to have to take out a loan and all of this. And I said, look, you've done so many great things for me this year. Here's $500. I'll just pay those taxes. I don't have any problem with it. I'll pay it. It won't affect me one way or the other. It wasn't really any great big gesture or magnanimous thing for me to do. It was just what seemed to be the right thing to do. The next day in the mail comes a check for $570 from Greece for an article that I had written for Family Circle magazine like 5 years before. It had been held up in some transaction in Greece, and there it was. The $500 back plus $70 as a bonus. That principle applies all the time for me in my life, I have found. And I didn't know that 10 years ago. I didn't know that if you give it away, it's like it's that circuitous nature of how each cell works. Remember the electrons that are circling around? They all just keep coming back. Everything just keeps coming back. And it works. And we are, when you think of an endless universe, we're still just tiny little cells. The same principle is working. But getting people who have been conditioned to believe that it's the bottom line and it's profits, and if I don't see it, then I don't believe it. And so in this technological, externally oriented, fast-paced kind of hectic society that we have created, we tend to forget some basic human principles. I tell people over and over again, your opinions are trivial. The opinions that you have about all the things and all the most profound problems in the world are essentially trivial, and they make almost no difference what your opinion is. It's your commitment to it that really makes all the difference in the world. You take the most profound problem in the world and understand that you're trivializing it by having an opinion about it. And you take the tiniest, most insignificant problem in the world, and if you have a commitment to doing something about it, that's the most profound thing you can do. We just talked briefly about something else that I think is very important, and that is the importance of modeling, or being an example. The highest place you can get to is be the person who whatever it is that comes out of your mouth is what is. And that's the purest form of sanity there is. That's the highest place you can get to, where whatever you say is what you follow through on. And that precludes maybe exaggerating for making a point or something like that. When you let something come out of your mouth, or when you behave in a certain way, that it is consistent always with the beliefs that you have. You're going to exaggerate something that doesn't need to be exaggerated. And you stop yourself. This is the place I'm at now in my life, where I'm trying to do this more and more, working at this, where I might have just exaggerated by a number or something. 2 million books were sold last week instead of 150,000 or whatever it is. And stop yourself. Like the need to distort your reality. Where does that come from? Why do you need to do that? No one cares. It doesn't make any difference. So that when you're doing that, usually if you're lying in any way, you know when you're doing it that it's a distortion. And after a while, if you distort enough, it becomes a habit. And correcting that habit and really going to work on that, whether you call it integrity or whether you call it the ability to live by example, and being a model, like with your children, it's so important to live what it is that you say rather than to be something different for them or try to pretend that you're something different than you are. I don't just get up in front of an audience, or I don't just sit down and write about something that's nice for you, but I don't have to do that. I am it. And what I've written in Gifts from Icus and The Sky's the Limit, particularly in the Raising Children book, is what I am living each day of my life. Getting yourself to that point, that important integrity point, where what comes out of you is exactly what is in the world, and that if you're going to try to be persuasive or be a leader or make a difference in the world, then you do that by modeling, by providing an example up and down the line. And anytime you detract from that example, then you are not being authentic. And being authentic is a part of being enlightened, and it's very important to have that concept down cold. You can't be cheating on your income tax and punishing your children for being dishonest and be an authentic, enlightened person at the same time. You can't be blowing cigarettes in their face and telling them about the evils of addiction and be an enlightened, authentic person.
And it's something I'd like to suggest to you when I talk about you can't give away what you don't have.
that whatever it is that you are giving away in the way of being offended or being an appreciator, and by the way, appreciation versus depreciation is the highest form of energy that you can have to your thoughts. In other words, every time you have a thought of depreciation, you have weakened yourself in some form. Any kind of a thought of depreciation. Whereas if you can shift a thought of depreciation into one of appreciation, even for that which you have been conditioned to believe deserves to be depreciated, if you can figure out a way to change and alter your thoughts, then you move into a higher energy. But more than moving into a stronger and a higher energy with appreciation, is that you move into a level of consciousness called synchronicity, in which you start to negotiate the presence of energy to serve as an attractor pattern. And that what I'm speaking about, solid energy as the lowest form of energy, and spiritual energy as the highest and the fastest form of energy, and that spiritual energy, the energy of love, the energy of cheerfulness, the energy of kindness, the energy of peace, when this energy is brought to the presence of the energy in which you have problems, lower energy, that these problems dissolve, they can't survive any more than darkness can survive in the face of light, then there is some kind of a gap that you have to negotiate between the world of problem energy and the world of higher energy. But what you have to look at here, when I say you can't give away what you don't have, is to ask yourself, if I can't give away what I don't have, it means that I am giving away what I do have. And because it's the only thing I can give away. I have to have it to give it away. So, and if energy is the vehicle upon which things are attracted and come into my life, then what is it that I am sending out there, because it is in giving that we receive, what is it that I'm giving? What am I sending out there? What kind of energy do I send out there? And begin to look at that as the rationale and the explanation and the reasoning behind what is showing up in your life. That it really has nothing to do with what's going on outside of you in other people and in other events and in what other people are saying or doing or circumstances of your life. As much as we like to use that as an explanation and a rationale for it, that in fact, if you can change around your thinking to ask yourself, why do I keep attracting what it is that I'm attracting into my life, and what can I do to attract something different into my life? These things that we're calling attractor energies, that possibly, just possibly, I might be able to come to a place where I recognize that everything that's going on in my life, everything, I take responsibility for. And if I continue to attract the wrong people, or scarcity instead of abundance, or illness instead of health, or unhappiness rather than happiness, or fear rather than faith. And again, I always go back to that very famous prayer of St. Francis, where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Where there is hatred, love. And if I can find a way to rid myself of those, just the thoughts, that I might possibly open myself up to a new idea, a mind that is open to everything, is one in which I say that I have been responsible for attracting all of these things into my life, and now I'm going to work at it for a given period of time of attracting something different into my life. I'm going to go with new attractor patterns of energy. I'm just going to go with it and see if I can make that shift begin to take place. And this thing that I have referred to as synchronicity is something that Jung said is something that is very real and is very powerful and is something that you can access. Which means that as you reach a faster energy yourself, you see, if everything is energy and nothing happens until something moves and everything is moving, then you yourself are just a great big bundle of energy. You are just vibrating. And if you are a bundle of energy, if you buy this idea that your hand and your feet and your eyes and your entire body is really nothing more than a series of very, very tiny subatomic particles all moving together very fast with spaces between them, and you see that and you can get that, then you recognize that there's got to be a frequency at which you are vibrating. It's got to be vibrating at some frequency. And if you can also accept the idea that if I could move to a faster and a higher, more spiritual energy, that I will literally change the vibration at which I am vibrating, then it begins with the thoughts. It begins with how I am processing and thinking thoughts, that I can absolutely get to a place where I can start to radiate out different kinds of energy.
I have been accused over the years in the critical press of providing false hope to people. People will call, and I'll be on a talk show on the radio someplace in the world, and someone will call in who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness of some kind, and I will talk to them about not buying into the diagnosis. About why would you just listen to a group of people who have a vested interest in convincing you of this impending doom in your life, and the law that has ever allowed any miracle to ever take place in the history of humanity is still on the books. It hasn't been repealed, so that energy, whatever it is, whoever has ever healed themselves of a diagnosis of terminal illness, used the same kind of energy that is in you. And so people say, well, that's providing false hope and so on. And I remember. Again, to speak about Michelangelo, I mean, these people that I selected for, or that selected me for Wisdom of the Ages, I feel after studying their lives in depth and looking at not only what they had to say, but what they were like, I mean, I feel like you're talking about my grandfather or something when you speak about Michelangelo. And again, in Florence, when we went to Florence, I said, I'm just going to go see the statue of David. And I thought, well, I'll just look at this statue. Everybody has to see David.
Yes.
And I walked in there, and you go through this long corridor, and you see all of these slaves on either side that are coming out of the concrete that were all sculpted by Michelangelo. And then you come into this room that's all lit, and then there's this statue, this magnificent statue, and it's 18 feet high. And it is the most astounding thing I've ever seen. And I'm not a big art critic or even going to art shows and sculpture and all that. I enjoy it, but it's not something that I have a passion about.
Yes.
Well, 4 hours later, Michael, I was still standing in front of that statue. My wife and my 3 daughters were out climbing El Duomo and buying shoes and doing all the things that you do when you're in Italy. Right. And they came back and they said, Dad, come on, we have to leave. And I felt like I couldn't leave that place. It was such a beautiful experience. I mean, you can see every vein in in this thing, and it's just a magnificent experience. So when they ask, there's this wonderful quote that they ask Michelangelo, how could you have created such a perfect specimen of sculpture from one piece of marble? His famous quote is that David was already in the marble. I just chipped away the excess.
Yes.
And that there's a David inside each and every one of us.
Yes.
And this idea of if you're, the greater danger is not that our hopes are too high and we fail to reach them, it's that they are too low and we do. And most people see themselves in terms, they don't see, I think you should see yourself as a saint. And I think a person ought to be envisioning themselves as capable of doing anything. I think it's possible to excel in every area of life. That is, you don't have to sort of restrict yourself to one area. I think you can enjoy going to a National Football League game in the afternoon and going to the ballet in the evening.
Yes.
And people say, well, you're a speaker. Usually speakers, and you get paid a lot for speaking, so usually speakers are not good writers, or because one is introverted and supposedly and one is extroverted. And I have often thought, why can't you be a really fine writer and a great speaker as well?
Sure.
And why can't you be a great athlete and a poet as well? Why not? And most of these people, like Goethe and Michelangelo and Da Vinci and Shakespeare and Pope and so many of these people, these were people who were masters at 1,000 different things. Isn't that interesting? How we, like in medicine now, I mean, now you have a specialist who specializes in the right finger, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yes. We have hand specialists, we have foot specialists, and nose specialists, and imagine going to school for years and studying only the hand,
yes.
you know, whereas here was Da Vinci or Michelangelo, and they studied, you know, they were anatomists. I mean, they studied anatomy, and were medical people, you know. They studied the way that Michelangelo learned about, you know, how to do sculpture was by examining cadavers. They would literally steal the cadavers and go through, and he would examine them. And you know, it's like when you discover the greatness that's in yourself, you know, and not restricting yourself in any way. And not enough of us can think of ourselves as being able to excel in all areas and to have high hopes about virtually everything. Because high hopes is not just a song that Frank Sinatra sang with a bunch of kids. High hopes is being able to visualize and see for yourself what it is that you'd like to be able to accomplish in your life.
To change the thought from notice me, to what Lao Tzu calls living in obscurity, becoming more obscure. We live in a celebrity-obsessed world, don't we? Look at me. Notice me. The Tao teaches something completely the opposite. Listen to the 66th verse of the Tao. Water again. The sea stays low. And because the sea stays low, all of the rivers and all of the streams empty into it. Because it stays humble. Because it stays in that place of just allowing everything to come to you. He was trying to teach us the important lesson of letting what we know is coming come to us. Verse 66 of the Tao. Why is the sea king of 100 streams? Because it lies below them. Humility gives it its power. That's a very important principle to understand, and I live on the ocean, right next to it. It's my front yard. And always I watch it to learn something from this thing called the ocean, which is the most powerful source of life that we have on the planet. Without it, there's no life on this planet. And because it stays low, so what does this have to say to us? Do you have the capacity to get past that ego need to always be saying, notice me, look how important I am? I mean, there's been a proliferation of this lately with this celebrity silly stuff, isn't it? I mean, CNN is doing, you know, full hour shows on silly little things about what happened to this particular celebrity or what happened to that celebrity, and the celebrity's never even done anything. And it's there's all of this talk about it, and all of the new magazines. I mean, and you go through an airport and you look on the newsstand and all the same photos, just with different magazines. I don't even know what the names of all of them are, but there's like this huge market now that we have for people to get into a state of notice me, notice me, notice me. And how much do we train our young people, particularly in our schools and so on, that the one who is the star is the one who gets the most attention. The one who is the most important and the most valuable is the one that has the most people liking them and so on. This constant obsession with needing to be noticed. When in fact, what I have found for myself is the happiest moments of my life are when I can do it low and slow and not have anybody out there even know what I'm doing. To be able to, I mean, Louise never would have advertised the fact of some of the things I talk about with her generosity. She does it anonymously. It's almost always done in those ways. No, look at me, look and notice me, how important I am, and so on. So much to learn from that kind of wisdom, from that kind of inner connection to the Tao, the ability and the willingness to say, to do it anonymously, to say that you can just get done almost anything that you want to get done if you don't become obsessed with taking credit for it. In the 36th verse of the Tao Te Ching, it says, "The gentle outlast the strong. The obscure outlast the obvious." Try to become a little more obscure, a little less interfering, a little less notice me, a little less, one of the specific kinds of things that you can do is just as you're about, when somebody else is talking, just as you're about to interject what you've been thinking about for the whole time, waiting for them to stop talking, just stop, to bite your tongue and say, "Tell me more." Or, "That's very interesting. I have never heard that point of view before." Even if they totally, completely disagree with everything that you stand for, to be willing to listen, to be able to stop. Practice it. I practiced it when I did these verses of the Tao. I practiced it every single day while I was working on that. Just staying obscure. And for me, that's not always so easy because of just being recognized wherever I go. And if I saw someone who was about to recognize me, I would just put my head down. I would just walk a little bit past them like something. Right now, I just want to be anonymous. Right now, I want to be obscure. The Tao says, "Storms always end." Verse 23, "Fierce winds don't blow all morning. A downpour of rain doesn't last all day." Who does this? Heaven and earth. You're already connected to everything you want or need. It will come to you at the exact perfect time, as the rivers and the streams come to the ocean at the perfect time and place. You gotta trust. You gotta know it's going to come to you. You don't have to chase after it. You can become a little less obsessed with your ego and your self-importance and who you are and what you've done, and you can get so much more done. And you know what? It's the most peaceful and sweet, delicious way. It's like the song that Cecilia was singing about the rose. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you.
In order to cultivate your witness, you need to learn to observe your reactions in order to go beyond them. It is the going beyond that is the crux of the sacred quest. There are many ways that you can use the observation process. Here are a couple of them that are very important. The first is observing your body. This is one of the areas of being the witness that most of us have practiced somewhat. In general, we allow our body to function without interference. We are aware that there is the body and that there is a ghost in the machine, if you will. For as long as you can remember, you have been observing this phenomenon of a body. It is also true that you know that the entity that is doing the observing is removed in some dramatic way from that which it is witnessing. As you are listening to these words, you are allowing your body to act out its destiny without your meddling. You are not busy beating your heart or filling your lungs or oxygenating your blood supply or circulating your vital fluids. You allow your body to operate itself, and you allow another part of you to know the way of being the divine, quiet, non-interfering observer. This way has served you well. By just observing your body and detaching yourself from its functioning, it works as perfectly as it was ordained to. If you were constantly monitoring and attempting to control your bodily functions, you would be unduly attached to its outcome, and you would inhibit its natural functions. The times in your life when you worry or interfere with the natural functions of your body are the times when you find it breaking down. Feed your body the wrong foods and it will respond with lethargy and disease. Fail to exercise it and it will become overweight and groggy. Ignore its needs for fresh air and healthy environment and it will fall into disrepair. Feed it narcotic substances or artificial drugs and it will react with violent symptoms. When your body is in any state of disrepair, from being overweight to having back pains or nervousness or influenza or cancer or anything that is not the way of perfect health that your body knows at the cellular and genetic levels, then you are being called back to the position of loving witness. The second way of observing is called observing your mind. Your mind is filled with thousands of thoughts every day. They come and they go like trains in a terminal. One enters, another takes its place, one exits, and along comes another. First, you want to watch your thoughts. Then you want to watch yourself watching your thoughts. Here is the door to the inner space where, free from all thoughts, you experience the bliss and the freedom that transport you directly to your higher self. the simple exercise of watching your mind manufacturing its thoughts will eventually cause unwanted, unnecessary, erroneous thoughts to dissolve. In the process of cultivating the witness, you learn to quiet your mind, to take inventory, and dispose of or reassign thoughts that generate self-defeating or ego-centered responses. In this simple process, you also come to know your spiritual self. Ego-generated thoughts play a huge role in creating the world that the ego wishes to create. Each of my thoughts seem to demand it be considered the most important. Troubles begin with a thought that you put into your mind and allow to fester to the point of anxiety. The anxiety begins to manifest in your life in physically destructive ways, which we call things like arthritis, high blood pressure, and career cardiacs. The loving, non-judgmental energy received from the observer or the witness will allow these thoughts to flow in and out as naturally as the ocean tides. Tides in, tides out. Thoughts in, thoughts out. You will learn to be a witness to your thoughts in the same way that you observe the tide. And the process will cleanse and redistribute and remove thoughts in much the same way as the driftwood on the beach. What remains is generally quite pleasing. Witnessing your thoughts will take some practice. With proficiency comes wonder and delight. Trauma is dissolved in the thinking stage and prevented from manifesting into your everyday world. Begin to notice the noticer. As you take note of your worlds, both inner and outer, begin to familiarize yourself with the noticer who is behind that which is being noticed. If you do this several times each day, you will begin to see that you are much more than just a body and mind going through the program motions of your life. Your realization of your true self as the witness behind that which is being witnessed will bring you a new dimension of creativity and bliss. Try on this exercise. Think of something that has been bothering you for a long period of time. Now go to a quiet place and close your eyes. Just see the problem surfacing on the blank screen in your consciousness. Notice all aspects of the problem, what it looks like, when it shows up, what you feel when it is on your mind, the pain and the fear that you have when it is present, how you have dealt with it unsuccessfully in the past. Think of everything that you can which is related to the problem. Then, detach yourself in your mind from the problem. Just allow it to sit there on the screen of your mind. Look at it from the viewpoint of the compassionate witness who just non-judgmentally notices the screen. Watch it like a movie, allowing it to change in whatever way it does. Just observe it with loving permission for it to do whatever it wants to do. You will see it change and fade in and out of awareness. With each change or movement on the screen, remain in the caring witness mode of knowing the energy will do what it will and will also be accompanied by the loving energy from the witness. Often, just this act of observation will result in a feeling of the problem having dissipated. If that happens, observe that also from the position of caring observer. I once practiced this act of observation when I was injured and unable to play tennis. I reacted at first to the pain in my foot with statements like, "This injury is keeping me from doing what I want to do and I'm really upset about it." I found that no matter what I tried, the pain persisted, and I was unable to pivot and consequently had to discontinue an activity that I loved. I then took the witness stance. I no longer saw myself as having an injury. I attributed the pain only to my body and not to me. I witnessed the entire thing and merely watched it. I lovingly witnessed the pain, the way it showed up, my feelings of frustration about it, the color of the swelling, everything. But I refused to think of it as mine. It was only my body's problem. The very same day that I did this, the entire discomfort disappeared. I mean, it was gone from my body. I had put my attention on what was occurring and detached myself from it, and in what seemed like a few hours, I no longer had the pain and I was playing tennis as if I had never experienced any injury at all. In order to know the benefit of witnessing, you will have to banish the doubt about this as something that will work for you. Remember, you have been conditioned to believe that your body is the essence of your humanity. You've been taught to tackle problems with your physical and intellectual apparatus, not your higher self. Practice new self-talk sentences to replace your old identification with your physical body. I am that which owns this body. I am not the body itself. I can't be reached if you come to me with hatred or anger. I cannot worry when I refuse to be the worrier and simply observe that worrier and the worries. Self-talk sentences will keep you centered on your spiritual domain. You will find that many things that you worried about or experienced in a negative fashion are slowly beginning to diminish from your life.
Let's go for a moment to our dream. And just assume that we're going to have a dream. We're in bed. And let me ask you this question. This is a question I like to ask for you to just contemplate, one of those sort of cones. When you go to sleep at night and enter your dream state, what happens to the bed? Just think about that. What happens to the bed? Now you're in your dream, okay? So just propel yourself into a dream state. And in your dream, you notice, let's say you're over here, and you're in a room. And in this room, you look across the room, and you notice that there's a podium in the room. And it has some objects on it. Now you're in your dream. So in the state of dream consciousness, you say to yourself, I would like to examine that podium more closely. How do you do it in your dream? How do you examine it more closely in your dream state? Do you get out of bed? Is there a bed? Now we're talking about 1/3 of your life here, folks, okay? 1/3 of your life. As Lao Tzu said, I went to sleep and dreamt that I was a butterfly. Then I woke up, and now I don't know. Am I a man who dreamt he was a butterfly, or am I a butterfly who's dreaming that he's a man? So in your dream state, do you get up out of bed, keep it right over there, say, excuse me, honey, wait, get out, and walk over and say, there's a galley of a new book, and there's a pen here, and there's some glass of water, I think I'll have a drink of that. There's a microphone stand, there's things. Do you do that? No, you don't do that. Because you enter your dream without any doubt. So what you do in your dream state is, are you ready? Shoo! Stay alert. And you bring it to you, don't you? In your dream state. Why? Because you have the power of your intention, can have an idea, and whatever you need for the fulfillment of your dream, you bring to you. Here it is. Here it is. Whatever you need. So you're 20 years old in your dream, and you need a jerk to be married to for the next 20 years. There he is. Isn't that great? You need a Maserati? There it is. Whatever you need for the dream, you bring to it. Then you leave the dream and you come into waking consciousness, and now you look back on the dream, and you now have a whole new set of things that you've introduced. And that set of things is called doubt. And the second key to higher awareness, which I'll get to shortly, is called banishing the doubt, but it's connected here. As you enter your dream state, you enter without any doubt about your capacity to do anything. So you can fly, you can jump over trees, you can be young again, you can transcend death, you can stay underwater, you can communicate telepathically with anyone that you want to, right? You have all of these incredible powers. And if someone has died and you want them back, you bring them back. If you need to be 12 again, and then you come into this state and you say, I can't do any of those things because you're stuck in paradigms. And the paradigm says, you cannot change your shape, you can't shape shift. If you're a certain age, you're a certain age. You can't move yourself into, you can't be in more than one place at the same time, which you can do in your dream, easily. You can't do those things. And one of the things I talk about in Your Sacred Self is like learning to become a waking dreamer, to understand that you don't have to go to sleep in order to dream. So now you wake up, and what I'm suggesting to you is that this is also a dream, only it's a 100-year dream. And in this 100-year dream, everything that you can do in your 8-hour dream, you can do in this 100-year dream. Everything. If you know better than to doubt it. And if you get rid of the paradigms that muck up your life. You have the capacity. But the minute that you introduce doubt into it, like that poem that I started out, Real Magic, which is really my effort to write about how to manifest miracles in your life. From Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he said, what if you slept? And what if in your sleep you dreamed? And what if in your dream you went to heaven and there picked a strange and wonderful flower And what if, when you awoke, you held that flower in your hand? Ah, what then? Is it possible to bring something from a dream state into a waking state? Or is that part of a paradigm? And the tiniest smidgen of doubt that enters your consciousness is what you will act upon. 7 key little words from Proverbs: as you think, so shall you be. If you think that it's not possible, what you think about is what expands. Or as Emerson said, the ancestor to every action is a thought. And the minute you have a doubtful thought in your consciousness, you will act upon that and manifest the fruit of that doubt. And not be able to see it. You will not see it.